Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Welcome to the deep dive. So we've been looking through this really fascinating material you sent over research, stories, different viewpoints, all tackling, well, one of life's biggest questions. Can money really buy happiness?
That's a great question. And it seems simple, right? But as you saw, it pulls you into psychology, economics, philosophy, even just powerful real-life stories. It's complex.
Absolutely, and that's what we want to do in this deep dive, really get into the material, pull out the key insights for you, and explore that complicated link between having wealth and feeling good about life.
Yeah, it's definitely not a straight yes or no answer.
Not at all. So many layers. Okay, let's unpack this. I guess first off, when we talk about happiness, what do we actually mean? It's kind of subjective, isn't it?
That's the perfect place to start. Happiness isn't just one thing. The research breaks it down. There's your emotional well-being, how you feel day to day, how often you feel positive emotions.
Right, like joy, contentment.
Exactly. Then there's life satisfaction. That's more of an overall assessment, like, are you happy with your life as a whole?
Okay.
And there's a deeper layer too, sometimes called eudaimonia. That's more about having a sense of purpose, meaning in life.
Purpose and meaning. Okay, so it's a mix of feelings, evaluation, and purpose. Got it. So diving into the psychology side of things from the material, what's a key idea about how we react when we get more money?
Well, one big concept that keeps coming up is the hedonic treadmill.
The hedonic treadmill. Sounds interesting.
It basically means we tend to adapt. Whether things get better or worse, our happiness often kind of drifts back to a sort of baseline level.
So like you get a raise, you're thrilled for a bit, but then
it just becomes normal. That initial rush, it fades. You adapt to the new income, the new standard of living. Studies show this income boost can lift happiness short term, but the adaptation is pretty quick.
That makes total sense. We just get used to things. But surely, money must be crucial for happiness at a basic level if you're really struggling.
Oh, absolutely. That's fundamental. It ties right into ideas like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom, you have essential physiological needs: food, water, shelter, and safety needs like security and health.
And money directly addresses those.
Directly. For someone in poverty, having enough money isn't just nice, it's vital. It reduces that constant stress, allows for basic security, and builds the foundation for any kind of well-being.
And didn't some research point to a kind of income threshold for day-to-day happiness?
Yes, there was a well-known study focusing on the US. It found that emotional well-being, those daily positive feelings, tended to rise with income, but only up to a certain point.
Which was around
roughly $75,000 a year back then, which might be closer to $90,000 today. Beyond that level, more income didn't seem to significantly boost daily happiness much further.
Interesting. Daily happiness levels off, but overall life satisfaction could still go up.
That's what they found, yeah. People might still say they're more satisfied with their life overall, even if their day-to-day mood isn't much different.
That distinction is really key. It makes you think about those huge lottery winner stories. Like Jack Whittaker, you'd assume instant permanent bliss.
It's often so much more complicated. Whittaker won, $315 million? Huge amount. Initial euphoria, buying houses, cars, donated.
Yeah, the dream scenario.
But then it just spiraled. Lawsuits, family tragedies, addiction, isolation. He apparently even said he wished he'd torn up the ticket.
Wow, that's sobering. It really highlights that hedonic adaptation, but also maybe the downsides of sudden massive wealth.
Exactly. It underlines findings that sudden wealth brings its own set of problems: social pressures, managing the money, unmet expectations. Sometimes it actually leads to less happiness.
Okay, so money is critical for getting out of hardship. Let's focus a bit more on its role as a foundation.
For people experiencing poverty, the link is crystal clear. Enough money means access to essentials: food, clean water, healthcare, safe housing. That dramatically reduces chronic stress.
It's about removing negatives, basically. Removing the constant worry.
Precisely. It improves the fundamental quality of life. And you see this reflected globally, too.
How so?
Well, big studies like the World Happiness Report consistently find that countries with higher average incomes generally report higher life satisfaction, especially in places where many people are still struggling to meet those basic needs. Lifting people out of deprivation boosts national well-being.
The material had some really impactful examples of this on a smaller scale, too.
Definitely. Think about microfinance, like the Grameen Bank, giving small loans, often just $100 or so, especially to women in poverty.
Like the story of Fatima Begum.
A perfect example. She got a small loan, bought a sewing machine, started a business. Suddenly, she could afford better food, schooling, healthcare for her kids.
Not just the money, it's the empowerment.
Absolutely. It boosted her financial stability, sure, but also her confidence, her standing in the community. It was transformative.
And larger government programs can have similar effects.
Right. Look at Brazil's Bolsa Familia. It's a conditional cash transfer program. Low-income families get monthly payments if they meet conditions like keeping kids in school, getting vaccinations.
So it incentivizes good practices while providing support.
And studies show it works. It's reduced hunger, improved health, and boosted life satisfaction for millions. It just shows how powerful money can be when it's directly targeting deprivation and securing those basic needs. That's where its link to happiness is strongest.
Okay, so undeniable impact at the foundational level. But what happens once those basic needs are met? When you have enough and maybe more than enough?
That's where the relationship gets, well, fuzzier. It's not so straightforward anymore. This brings us to something called the Easterlin paradox.
Easterlin paradox, what's the gist?
Proposed back in the 70s, it suggests that beyond a certain income point, getting even richer doesn't really lead to a big jump in national happiness levels. Within a country, richer people might be happier than poorer people, but as a whole country gets richer over time, average happiness doesn't necessarily increase much.
Why is that? More resources should mean more happiness, shouldn't it? Logically.
You'd think so. But a few factors seem to be at play. One big one is social comparison. We tend to judge our own well-being by looking at others.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. If your income goes up, but so does everyone else's, or your neighbor gets a fancier car, you might not feel any better off. You just adapt your reference point.
Right. And simply buying more things.
That often doesn't hit the spot either. Accumulating material possessions doesn't necessarily fulfill deeper human needs, things like finding purpose, feeling connected to others, having a sense of autonomy or control over your life.
So even someone with, immense wealth might not be incredibly happy.
The example suggests that's true. Think about someone like Elon Musk. Obviously, staggering wealth, incredible influence. Yet he's spoken openly about loneliness, about intense stress, grappling with big existential questions.
The pressure must be immense.
Reportedly working 100-hour weeks, leading multiple huge companies. The wealth provides luxury and power, no doubt. But it doesn't seem to grant immunity from very human struggles. It suggests money alone just doesn't fulfill those higher-level needs.
That's a really striking point. And I guess our expectations just keep shifting upwards, too.
Absolutely. As income rises, aspirations tend to rise with it. What felt like a luxury yesterday is just standard today. You need more to get the same feeling.
Is there an income point where life satisfaction peaks?
Some research suggests there might be, and it varies globally. Maybe $60,000 in Latin America, over $100,000 in Western Europe, according to one study. But even when people reach those levels, the cycle can continue wanting more, driven by society, by lifestyle inflation.
So it's a cycle. Basic needs met, then the treadmill and comparisons kick in.
Pretty much. Which leads to a really crucial insight from the research. How you spend your money often matters more for happiness than just how much you have.
Now this is where it gets really interesting.
Totally. Researchers like Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton have done fantastic work here. Their findings consistently show that spending money on experiences,
Like travel, concerts, learning something new.
Exactly. And spending money on others' gifts for friends, donations to charity, tends to generate more lasting happiness than buying material goods.
Why the difference? Why do experiences and giving pack more punch than stuff?
Well, experiences create memories. You can savor them beforehand, enjoy them during, and reminisce afterward. They often involve other people, strengthening social connections.
Right, memories don't depreciate like a new gadget.
And giving to others, what researchers call pro-social spending, taps into our fundamental need for connection and making a difference. It just feels good. It builds a sense of purpose.
The story of that Johnson family really jumped out at me. Selling their house for experiences.
It's a great example, isn't it? They made a conscious choice, sold the suburban home, used savings and remote work income to travel the world for years.
Over 30 countries, right?
Yeah, focusing on experiences, hiking, volunteering, cultural immersion. They reported it massively deepened their family bonds and gave them a sense of fulfillment that, a bigger house just couldn't provide.
And the science backs up the good feeling from giving.
It does. Brain scans show that spending money on others activates reward centers in the brain. It genuinely makes us feel happier. Even billionaires like Warren Buffett, pledging most of his fortune away, talk about the immense purpose and satisfaction they get from giving.
Far beyond just accumulating more.
Far beyond. And then there's the incredible story of Osceola McCarty.
The washerwoman. That was amazing.
Just incredible. Lived very frugally her whole life, saved up $150,000, and then in her old age, donated it all to fund scholarships for underprivileged students.
Wow. Despite her own modest life.
And it brought her huge personal satisfaction, national recognition. It's such a powerful illustration that money's positive effect on happiness is often strongest when it's used to benefit others.
These examples really drive home that it's the use of money, the intention behind it, that matters so much. But, the material also pointed out a darker side to wealth sometimes.
It definitely can have challenges. While money opens doors, it can also bring unique pressures, difficulty trusting people, maybe even isolation.
It seems odd that having more could make you feel more alone.
Yeah, but some high net worth individuals report struggling with authentic connections. They worry if people are interested in them or their money. It can create a barrier.
And the actual pursuit of wealth itself can be a trap.
It can. An obsessive focus on getting richer can lead to workaholism, burnout, neglecting relationships, or even crossing ethical lines.
Bernie Madoff is a chilling example of that.
A really stark one from the material, yes. Hugely successful on Wall Street, built a massive fortune, but it was all a lie. A giant Ponzi scheme.
The damage was immense.
His single-minded pursuit of wealth led to deceit on an epic scale, destroying his reputation, his family, his freedom, and devastating thousands of victims. It's a powerful warning about how an unchecked desire for money can corrupt values and ultimately destroy well-being.
And there's even research suggesting wealth can sometimes link to other issues, like stress or maybe lower empathy.
Yeah, some studies have noted correlations. Higher income individuals sometimes report higher stress, maybe lower empathy in certain situations. The constant pressure to maintain wealth or status can be a significant source of anxiety.
So money isn't a magic wand. It solves some problems, but can definitely create others. And this whole picture seems to change depending on your culture, too.
That's a really important layer. The money-happiness link isn't universal. It's shaped by cultural values and context.
So in places like the US,
where individualism is often emphasized, wealth can be strongly tied to perceptions of personal success. This might actually intensify that social comparison effect, feeling like you need to measure up financially.
Whereas in more collectivist cultures,
like in parts of East Asia or Africa, money's value might be viewed more through the lens of supporting family, contributing to the community, upholding group harmony. So wealth might impact happiness differently, maybe more through its communal benefits.
Did the material mention any places that actively try to prioritize well-being over just economic growth?
Bhutan is the classic example. They famously use gross national happiness, or GNH, instead of just GDP.
Right, GNH. What does that include?
It looks at things holistically: health, education, cultural preservation, good governance, environmental sustainability, community vitality, not just economic output.
And does it work? Are they happier?
They often rank quite high in happiness surveys, particularly within Asia. It suggests that a society's priorities and values can foster well-being, maybe even more than just sheer national wealth.
And even within a country like the US, does context matter? City versus rural, for instance.
Big time. In cities, the cost of living is higher. There's often more visible wealth, more social pressure maybe. So the income level linked to happiness might need to be higher there.
Compared to rural areas.
Right. In rural settings, community ties might be stronger, daily expenses lower, less income might go further towards contentment. One study mentioned rural Americans reporting higher life satisfaction than urbanites at similar income levels, possibly due to less comparison.
Fascinating. So context is key. And underlying a lot of this seems to be our mindset, how we think about money and life.
Huge factor. Mindset is critical. We talked about that hedonic treadmill, how we get used to things. New income, new possessions become the norm pretty quickly.
So how do you fight that?
Yeah.
How do you stay happy with what you have?
Well, practices like gratitude and mindfulness seem really powerful. Research shows that consistently practicing gratitude, like keeping a journal of things you're thankful for, can significantly boost happiness. Like by 25% in one study, regardless of income.
Just by shifting focus.
Exactly. Focusing on appreciating what you have rather than always chasing what you don't.
And the whole minimalist movement seems connected here.
Very much so. Think of the minimalists, Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus. They walked away from high-paying corporate jobs.
To live with less stuff.
Right. They intentionally reduced possessions, shifted focus onto relationships, experiences, personal growth, and they report being much happier, much more fulfilled, despite lower incomes. It's about consciously choosing what you value over just accumulating things.
It's striking how these modern ideas seem to echo really ancient philosophical thoughts.
Isn't it? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. Epicurus, back in ancient Greece, argued happiness wasn't about wealth, but simple pleasures.
Like what?
Friendships, freedom, time for reflection. He thought those were the keys, not riches.
And the Stoics.
They emphasized inner contentment, finding peace and virtue regardless of external circumstances, whether you are rich or poor. It's about mastering your internal state, not depending on external validation or possessions.
These ideas feel very relevant today.
They really do. Think about Diogenes, the cynic philosopher who supposedly lived in a barrel.
A bit extreme, maybe.
Definitely unconventional. But his point was rejecting materialism to focus on virtue and freedom. It's a radical challenge to consumerism that still makes you think.
And you see echoes in modern movements too, right?
For sure, like the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, people saving aggressively, living simply to gain control over their time.
Like Pete Adney, Mr. Money Mustache.
Exactly. He retired super early by living frugally. Now focuses on family, hobbies, community stuff in Colorado. Reports high life satisfaction. It's about using money as a tool to buy freedom and time for what truly matters, not just endless accumulation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Psychology, economics, stories, philosophy. Let's try to pull it together. Based on all this material, what are the practical takeaways? How can you use money to actually maximize happiness?
Right, the practical strategies. It really comes down to being intentional.
So, number one.
Meet basic needs first. Prioritize financial security. Cover housing, food, healthcare. Get that foundation solid. Reducing that fundamental stress is huge for well-being.
Makes sense. Build the base, then.
Second, prioritize experiences over things. Make conscious choices. Invest in travel, learning, shared activities with loved ones. These build lasting memories and connections in ways material goods often don't.
Okay, experiences over stuff. What else?
Third, give generously. Find ways to spend on others or support causes you care about. The research is clear. It boosts happiness, creates purpose, strengthens social ties.
Giving feels good, basically.
It really does. Fourth, practice gratitude. Actively appreciate what you have. Keep a journal. Reflect regularly. It's a powerful antidote to the hedonic treadmill and wanting more.
Counteract the adaptation. And finally.
Fifth, align spending with your values. Figure out what's truly important to you. Family, creativity, community, health. Then make sure your financial choices reflect those priorities. Spending in line with your values brings a deeper satisfaction.
And people like Pete Adney show it's possible to live this way.
He's a great example of applying these principles. Saved diligently, lived simply, gained freedom, and focused on what brings him joy beyond just money. It shows how strategic financial choices really can enhance well-being.
So let's circle all the way back. The big question. Can money really buy happiness?
Based on this deep dive, the answer is complex. It's a yes, but. Or maybe it depends. Money is definitely a tool and a powerful one, but its effectiveness for happiness depends hugely on context, use, and mindset.
It's most powerful when?
When it's lifting people out of poverty, securing basic needs, reducing that grinding stress. Also, when it enables meaningful experiences and allows you to be generous towards others. In those areas, its impact is profound.
But once you have enough,
that's where the impact significantly lessens for many people. Beyond that point, other things seem to matter much more. The quality of your relationships, having a sense of purpose, feeling autonomous, cultivating gratitude, those become the bigger drivers of well-being.
The stories really highlighted that, didn't they? The lottery winner's struggles versus the fulfillment of the philanthropist or the minimalist.
They powerfully illustrate that the value of wealth for happiness seems to lie much more in how it's used, how it aligns with deeper needs, rather than just the sheer amount you have piled up.
It really does echo that ancient wisdom again.
It does. Aristotle talking about happiness, eudaimonia, as the ultimate goal, achieved through balance and virtue. It feels incredibly relevant today with global inequality and consumer pressures.
So maybe true fulfillment isn't really about the bank balance.
It seems it's much more about the richness of your life experiences, your connections, your contribution, your inner state, aligning your resources, whatever they are, with your values. fostering contentment.
And like Epicurus said, do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not.
A perfect thought to end on. Focus on building that rich life, not just a rich bank account.
We really hope this deep dive into the complex relationship between money and happiness gave you some valuable food for thought. If you found this interesting and useful, please do remember to like this video, share it with others who might benefit, and subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more deep dives.